Chronic stress will kill you faster than bad gene or a bad diet. You can follow every wellness trend, track your steps, drink your green smoothie, meditate on a mountain. If your stress is unmanaged and out of control, if it's chronic, you will still accelerate your aging process. And here's the really scary part. Most people have no idea that it's happening. So chronic stress has become so common, we call it actually just being busy, right? We shrug it off like that's life, I'm busy. But biologically, it's silently kind of rewiring your brain. It actually has a tremendous impact on your cellular level. It's damaging. It can reduce your immune system function, reduces your lifespan, and impacts really your health span, the amount of time you can live longer, healthier, and happier. In this episode, I'm going to talk about why stress is kind of like the silent longevity killer and what it's really doing to your brain, your body, and your future. And most importantly, how you can stop that and reclaim your health starting today. Now is always a good time. Welcome, I'm Heike Fallon. I'm a neurosports therapist and personal high performance coach and the creator of the NeuroHP method. And I've helped lots of leaders, professionals, high achievers, people like you who want to stay longer healthy and on top of their game, to not burn out and not break down and have all these aches and pains, to really work on their longevity, on their lifespan, as well as their health span. So what I've seen time and time again is that chronic stress is really the root cause of a lot of decline. Let it be performance, your energy, your health, motivation. And it doesn't really matter how many exercises I give my clients that technically are fantastic exercise to get them out of pain, for example, or increase their performance. If these clients have or dealing with chronic stress, they won't get better. They have to address the chronic stress and in order to actually get better. And oftentimes there's nothing really wrong structurally, but they're in a tremendous amount of pain. So let's talk a little bit about stress. Stress in itself is actually not bad. We do need stress. Stress is what helps us to keep us alert and sharp and focused, and even stress on the joints is a good thing for growth. The problem is chronic stress. Chronic stress is when that threat response never goes down. So when that signal is constantly going and going and going and it's not switching off, that's when it's chronic stress. Now, chronic stress is not great because it usually keeps your heart rate elevated. Your muscles are usually tense. Oftentimes my clients come to me and don't even realize how tense their jaw is from constantly being stressed, right? Also, your brain really spikes cortisol levels consistently, and that is what we call a stress hormone, and constantly an overload of cortisol can really have tremendous impact on your body and your brain, and you may not think clearly anymore, and you're definitely not performing at your best. So the longer you're in this survival mode, the more wear and tear it really has on all systems, not the ones I just said. It's not just your cardio system, your muscle system, and we have a lymph system and so many other systems that are impacted by that. So when you have chronic stress, it's also your amygdala, where all our emotions are processed, that gets kind of more hypersensitive or overly activated. And your prefrontal cortex oftentimes is not able to function as well. So you're also not being, as collected in your decision making, or you might be more impulsive and reactive, more emotional, and in your problem and decision making. So that can have a tremendous impact. You may also not be able to memorize and learn as much when your cortisol levels are too high. So that means also you might forget a lot of stuff like your names, and you have a hard time retaining information. and you might not feel as clear or as focused. So the longer this continues, the harder it is to regulate your emotions. So the brain should not stay all the time in the survival mode, right? It needs to have a break. So this is why chronic stress is linked to depression, anxiety, brain fog, definitely one of them, but even Alzheimer and other cognitive decline, and even stroke, right? So the more stressed we are, the problem is also the less likely we get a good night's sleep, and then we're becoming to be in this cycle. And then our whole system cannot grow, think, and thrive in the same way when it's trying to just, basically tries to survive. The other problem too with cortisol is that it can throw off all our basically our hormonal ecosystem. So it can create less melatonin production. Melatonin is extremely important for a good night's sleep, as I said, but also produces less serotonin, and that can make our mood decline. And other levels like estrogen, progesterone, testosterone can be impacted. And so you may not have as good muscle recovery, you might not have as good bone health. Oftentimes, with stress, your vitamin D levels might be lower. So that can, and calcium and all these things can be affected. You may also gain more weight. So if you've been trying to lose weight and it's not happening, it might be because you're too stressed. You might have an afternoon energy crash, or you just generally feel exhausted. And that's often not just physiologically, but again, also mentally, right? And key too is the cortisol can also impact your immune system tremendously. And that obviously has an impact on your health as far as how frequent you might get a cold, or you might have allergies that you're dealing with. So in a way, your system cannot work on its immune defense as well. And inflammation might actually be a problem, and you may not realize it at first, but for example, all gut dysfunction is usually inflammatory response, and injuries might take longer to heal. And there's even research out that it can impact the chance of having cancer. So chronic stress puts your body in a constant state of basically vulnerability, and the consequences are severe. It has a tremendous impact on your longevity, but it goes even further. Chronic stress actually shortens your what's called the telomeres, which are a protective cap kind of on the ends of your DNA. And you can kind of think of it like those little plastic things on shoelaces, right? It kind of keeps it together in the front there. But every time the cell divides, which happens all the time, the telomeres get shorter. And chronic stress speeds up this process. So when the telomeres get too short, cells become dysfunctional and they may die. When the cells are dysfunctional or die, that's usually when our skin ages faster, our joints deteriorate, we might be healing really slower, and again, cognitive decline is a big factor. So you might be thinking, well, I'm not stressed, I'm just super busy and it will get better, right? But again, chronic stress kind of can be there without you really realizing that you're already in that. And there's certain little subtle signs of how your body might be under stress. And so when you're waking up, for example, tired in the morning, that could be one sign. Again, your afternoon crash. If you're craving a lot of sugar or caffeine, not a good sign. And you might be also emotionally just not as stable. You might be more irritated, more, kind of snapping at loved ones. Trouble falling asleep can be a big factor or sign. Digestive issues, if you feel constipated or bloated. Tension, as I mentioned, in your neck and jaw and shoulders. Brain fog, poor memory, and, any of these. So if any of these apply to you, and believe me, I've definitely could check off a couple of those and been working on those. The key is recognize it now and start addressing your stress. Now, we can, because your system is already wired for stress, so we kind of have to rewire it, and it's possible because our brain can change and adapt, and we need to start now and today by recognizing it and then implementing the right strategies. That's what my NeuroHP method is all about, having the right strategies for each person, because it's really customized on what you need to do. But the key is that starting first, recognizing that you need to work on something, and understand that the more intentionally you work on addressing your stress and manage your energy and managing your stress is important. The key component for managing stress is unfortunately also sleep, and most people who have chronic stress have also chronic sleep issues. So sleep is a challenge in itself, but you do need sleep. I made an extra video for sleep, but if you're struggling with sleep, just know that it's very important to work on it. You do need your 7 to 9 hours, and good quality and quantity is important for your brain to really recover, restore. It's important for your hormonal balance, for your immune system, for emotional regulation, but also for toxin to drain out of your brain through the lymphatic system. So list is long on why you should sleep. It is non-negotiable. It's absolutely important, but I understand if you have chronic stress, you probably having already chronic sleep deprivation and struggle with that. So what most of my clients don't understand in the beginning is that what you do throughout the day has an impact on your sleep. So it's not just setting up your sleep environment right and stuff like that, but it's really about your day. So take short breaks throughout the day, quick ones every 50 minutes, move intentionally throughout the day, because movement will help you sleep better as well. Practice a couple breathing drills, particularly also before bedtime, to calm the nervous system down. But even visual system and vestibular exercise can help. Track your energy too. Pay attention. Are you lacking energy? How are you managing the energy throughout the day? Set boundaries. Say no more often. And really work on your purpose and know your why. And working on those things oftentimes helps shifting and improving your sleep as well. Keep in mind, it doesn't happen overnight, pun intended. You do need to work on this consistently. I usually recommend do it for at least 3 to 6 months, depending on how derailed your sleep was. I used to struggle with sleep, and it really took even a little longer than 6 months to really recover and create a better sleep pattern overall again. So keep in mind, it does take some time. So now you have a couple tools of what you can do, got a little bit an insight of the science. So it's not necessarily about doing more. Don't start all of these things at once. Start with something small. What matters is really getting started and consistently doing that, because for longevity, consistency is really the key. So don't wait until symptoms show up if you don't have them yet. Today is a good day to start. If you already have symptoms, address and implement one habit that you can reclaim your health today. I'm Heike Fallon, and I'll see you in the next episode.